Hi, I'm Paul Harding. I thought it might be nice to speak with you a little bit about my novel, This Other Eden. I was drawn to the story upon which that of Apple Island is based when I was looking at communities of racially integrated communities that formed in the United States after the American Civil War. And I came upon the story of it's an island off the southern coast of the state of Maine called Malaga Island, which was formed by a freed or escaped formerly enslaved black man and his wife, who was from Galway, Ireland, in the 1790s. And they formed a very small fishing community that was on this island for about 125 years until the state of Maine evicted them in 1912. This was during the time when eugenics was flourishing, unfortunately. So I just found that it was a quintessentially New England story, quintessentially American story, and then quintessentially a human story of being displaced and marginalized. And so at that, and the fact that it was set on an island, which for some reason is irresistible to me as a writer. Transforming the historical story of Malaga Island into the fictional Apple Island was not difficult. I knew from the moment I read about the factual history of Malaga Island that I did not want to write a novel I didn't want to write a purely historical novel. I didn't have any connections to the people from the island or their particular history, so the more factual history was not mine to write. So I just in fact, I only read about 2 or 3 articles about the island, and once I realized that it had laid claim to my imagination, I stopped doing anything like research. Their factual story was not mine to tell. So I took, again, the basic details of being evicted, being a racially integrated community, living on an island, and immediately started to try to imagine and populate the island with characters of my own invention. Also, the moment I understood that they lived on an island, they were racially integrated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I started to have all sorts of literary associations. I thought of the island as being a little bit like the island in Shakespeare's play The Tempest, a little like the boat, the Pequod, which is the boat that is in Herman Melville's novel Moby Dick, and a little bit like Noah's Ark in the Bible, where you have people from all around the world who are living in a small space together, more or less harmoniously. So once I had that, I wanted to be able to make a much more literary, imaginary version of a story and a plot that was like Malaga Island, but not factually based in it. One of the things that struck me about the island is that it was, at the beginning, it was something like, again, not unlike Noah's Ark. It was a place of sanctuary. It was a place to be safe, a place that was the separation from the mainland, and the main community was actually something that the insulating qualities of living on an island were good. But then over time, it became more isolating and more confining, and almost as if it went from being a sanctuary to a prison almost, or some place to which you were confined, whether you liked it or not. That also just was very compelling to me, to my imagination. We usually think of families and communities multiplying and growing and proliferating and expanding in time and geography, whereas these people in their isolation, it became more as if they were involuting, as if they were shrinking into themselves. And so I found that aesthetically, poetically, very, very powerful, emotionally very powerful. So my writing process is, at the beginning, it is what I would colloquially call a method of throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, into the early manuscript, while I'm trying to conjure characters and place and plot. Basically anything that I'm reading, any music that I'm listening to, any paintings that I'm looking at, anything that in my own time as reading and engaging in other art, I throw it into the very, very earliest manuscript, with the idea and the challenge and the anticipatory auditory pleasure of watching how all of the different layers and elements will become implicated in one another. So it's very improvisational. I don't demand that anything carry any weight at the beginning. Eventually, things have to hold their weight and they have to contribute to the organic whole of the book. But it is a process of layering. I love to use different types of genres and idioms so that I can tell the story from as many different angles as possible, so that in the process of composing the story, the different idioms help reveal more and more about the story to me, but then I like to pass that along to the reader so that I can give the reader as many different looks at the subject and the characters as possible. I think of it in terms of music as well, different tempos, different keys, different dynamics to situate the reader in and from which to see what these lives are like. So I suppose the writers and works of art that most inspired me while I was writing Eden, I mean, there are almost too many to name, but I teach at the university level. I teach the Old Testament. I was thinking of Noah. I was thinking of prophets as well. There's a character in the book named Esther. She's the matriarch of the family the novel centers on, and I think of her as a kind of prophet. I was thinking a lot about prophecy and what that is in the Old Testament. Shakespeare is always an influence. Like I said, The Tempest, being on the island. To me, maybe because of how much I love The Tempest, there's something slightly magical about being on an island. So there are a couple of characters on the island. They're almost like the little fairies that are in The Tempest, and they make little cameo in this other Eden. I also am a lover of painting and art, so that there are several paintings that are either explicitly subjects in the book and others that are more implicit that I thought of setting scenes. So to me, it's just art inspires art. And I think of the way that I write as largely a method or process of collaging different idioms, different genres. Also, aesthetically, I just love the idea of taking different mediums. So taking a painting, taking a piece of music, and in effect, transposing it into narrative prose.